Welcome to Making Space For, the podcast where we embark on a journey to simplify, organize, and prioritize our lives. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and each episode will explore the art of intentional living, helping you make room for what truly matters. In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, it's easy to find ourselves surrounded by things that don't contribute to our happiness or well-being. Making Space For is your guide to decluttering not just your physical space, but also your mind and soul. We'll dive into practical tips on downsizing, right-sizing, and the transformative power of letting go. Whether you're starting a cluttered closet, pondering legacy planning, or seeking the elusive balance between work and self-care, this podcast is your sanctuary for inspiration and actionable insights. Join us as we feature experts, share personal stories, and explore the profound impact of intentional living. Together, we'll navigate the journey towards a simpler, more fulfilling life. One where you have more of what matters and less of what doesn't. So are you ready to make space for the life you've always wanted? Let's dive in. This is Making Space For. Well, before we dive into today's episode, a quick shout out to our flagship company, A Move Handled with Care. As Denver Metro's premier senior and specialty move management expert since 2007, we've mastered the art of downsizing, right-sizing, organizing, and every step in between. From packing and moving to unpacking and staging, our experienced staff represent all stages of life, offering a compassionate touch to what matters most to you. So, if you're looking to make a seamless transition while keeping what truly matters in focus, trust A Move Handled with Care. Visit us at amovehandledwithcare.com or on Facebook or LinkedIn to discover the difference. Let's continue making space for the life you deserve. Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Making Space For podcast. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and today we're diving into a topic that has the potential to transform every aspect of your life. We'll be exploring the profound impact of getting professionals involved, whether it's in your personal life, your career, or beyond. So let's jump right in. This is Making Space For Professionals. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Making Space For podcast. I'm Paige Rabin, co-owner and chief operating officer of A Move Handled with Care here in the Denver metro area. Today, we're diving into the topic of when to hire a professional. And, as you wouldn't maybe sometimes consider movers or move managers or something like that as a professional, but our culture is really changing over the idea of what a professional is and when and how we fit this into our lifestyle. I don't know about how many of you, but I grew up in a family where it was kind of, you did it yourself. Everything was kind of DIY. It was cost savings on one end. It was also cultural on the other end. Technology has just made our culture expand, and some services that didn't feel like you would need someone to do are now kind of commonplace. And so if you think about even just like kind of the low stakes things of grocery delivery or ordering food or things, ordering your prescriptions, anything that can be, done online and shipped to your house and things like that, it's just kind of changed the way that we view how we spend money, how we engage, and who and how we spend our time and energy, and where we ask for assistance. And so today we just kind of want to talk about the pros and the cons of seeking professional help and what that might look like for you in all different ways. So I guess we'll just kind of jump right in. I pulled some statistical data, which I thought was kind of interesting. So if you see me kind of looking, I'm looking at my other screen with all of my information here. But as far as low stakes, I was just talking about that, just how our culture has changed in what we do. So in low stakes things that aren't very expensive, pretty easy to do. Online grocery shopping has seen a huge surge. With 12% of households, and this was in 2022, so this information is a little bit old, but 12% of all households were using it regularly. So if you think about it, that's something I personally do. I grew up in a military family, like I said, and so, we went grocery shopping. We did, I guess my mom did meal planning back in the day. My sister and I, we did chores, but it wasn't because we got paid for chores. It was because that was what we were expected to do in our house. Home improvement projects were done on our own. So the fact that like grocery shopping is something that we can outsource now is just kind of crazy. And It says the US food delivery market reached $31.4 billion in 2022, indicating widespread use of that. I think COVID, if we think back a few years ago to the crazy times of COVID, I mean, how dramatically that changed how we connect and what we need. And, for those of you who were going to Costco, now you can do Costco to your front door for all your major things. I mean, it's just kind of revolutionized the way that we do stuff. And so that's kind of interesting on that perspective. And then this says on average, about 10 to 15% of all American households right now are using laundry service of some sort. So outsourcing their laundry, whether that's dry cleaning or full laundry. So if you think about even some of these low stakes items, the one that I think is kind of interesting, that's one of the highest, is about 30% of Americans order food delivery at least once a month. And, we have how many subscriptions? You can do statistical data on that. You've got your Netflix and you've got your Hulu and you've got your Spotify and you've got, the Shave Club and you've got your dog food that's on repeat, and you've got medications that are automatically sent. Like we're learning to automate our space and our time. And also what that does is it makes space for the things that you do love in your life, the time that you do want to spend doing the things that you want. And so I guess in this one, we're going to just kind of discuss the pros and cons. What does that look like? And how you can make some informed decisions on picking a professional. So let's talk a little bit about some of the pros when it comes to using a professional. And so at this point, let's talk about, that could be a financial advisor, an attorney, somebody to help with your will directives, a mover, an organizer, a house cleaner, things that just free up your space. And what that is. And I think the number one thing that when you're looking at a professional in the pros category is the expertise and specialization in their field. So, I mean, yes, we actually just went to a seminar not long ago, and it was talking about your will. And my husband and I had a will done when our kids were born. And, time has passed. Have we reassessed that? No. Could we go to LegalZoom and figure out how to do a will and, do it for a nominal fee and do it DIY and research and do this and this? Yeah, we could. But is that something that we want to leave to chance? And so looking at that expertise of what they do, like it is not an area of expertise for me. And I would hate to have something that important be left up to my own devices or some AI tracking device that can help me kind of come up with that. So looking at the expertise of that person and where does that fit into your level of knowledge, because everyone's level of knowledge will be a little bit different. And so if you have a really high financial acuity, maybe financial stuff seems very attainable to you. If you are a real handy person, maybe DIY projects in your home seem very attainable to you. But if you're like me and you have to watch a YouTube on how to pretty much fix anything in your house, I'm probably not the best person to build a bathroom in my basement or to add on to my patio on the back. I'm going to have to find somebody who has that extra expertise and specialization in that. And so just knowing what your skill set is important, but also understanding what somebody else is in that professional world, what their knowledge base is, and kind of doing your homework, right? Like where did they, get any of their credentials from? How long have they been doing it? Is it somebody who's been doing it for 6 months? Somebody who's doing it for 6 years? Somebody doing it for 26 years? And what level are you more comfortable with when looking at that level of expertise? Another pro that I guess you could put into the category of when you get a professional involved is time and efficiency. I don't know about you, but there are certain things that you can do really efficiently because you do it all the time. It's a rote behavior that you do or something that you're really good at, and things like that. But, where can you be the most efficient with your time? And so if you're a busy professional, maybe the most efficient use of your time, I just got into this year, is grocery delivery. It's one of the reasons I thought about it is because I never thought that. I always felt like I had to go to the grocery store. I had to look at every piece of food that was going into my cart. For those of you who know me, know that I have 2 people in my family with some food allergies. And so I just used to have to read everything and do everything. But I've kind of gotten to the point now where I know that a bit, and I'm a busy professional, working mom, and things like that. So it's been this luxury that I've gotten myself into, which is that. And so time and efficiency is, what can someone do faster than me, better than me, and free up that time? And so also too, because they're doing it all the time. So they're better at it. I don't grow things very well. One of our employees, lovely human being, she's kind of our seasonal employee, she's a master gardener, and she knows, how to maintain things in Colorado, how to maintain things in the soil, depending on where you live and where your house sits and which direction you get the sun and the water. She knows things, and her time and efficiency and working in a garden is going to be much better than someone like myself who can barely keep a succulent alive. So looking at that time and efficiency. And then I would also say, like, that quality assurance is their level of expertise also going to ensure that the job is done better? So that quality assurance, they know what they're doing. They do it all the time. And so when they do it all the time, it's going to be done more accurately. They may have the most up-to-date software. They may have the most up-to-date tools. They may have the most up-to-date knowledge and experience and all of those things that inform their quality. If you're having work done on your house, I guarantee if you're trying to pass inspections through electrical or plumbing, you're definitely going to need somebody who knows what those inspection points are and how to be successful there. In the moving industry, we also know the best products. There's a ton of products out in the world that as movers, we laugh at. And every mover is a bit different in what they like. And it's also based on, kind of their training, maybe where they live, the weather, all of those different things. But just because they sell it doesn't mean it's something we would buy. And so, kind of what size boxes we like, the ones that we like. We don't like the ones with external handles. We like a certain kind of tape. We like to use flat white paper. We don't like bubble wrap. Everybody kind of has a thing that they like. And what it does is it helps their quality assurances, because that's how people are trained to use those tools to make sure that things are getting to and from in a great manner. So I guess that's the other thing too. I mean, you wouldn't have somebody draw, designing a house, you wouldn't have somebody draw it on a notepad. You would actually want an architect. You would want somebody who knows how a building should be put together. And so that quality assurance, to know that they have the experience to do it. And I think, kind of rounding out the pros is that peace of mind. It's knowing that you've hired someone who, by the way, has sold you a product, whatever that product might be. And if the product isn't done well, then you know who to go to fix the problem. I would love to say that's probably the case everywhere, but most of the time you're going to get a job well done. And so you're going to mitigate issues from the jump. And then, just the peace of mind of knowing that somebody is handling that task, reducing your stress, reducing your anxiety, and things like that. So I don't know how many of you, raise a hand, how many of you do your own taxes? I don't know. I don't know what the average is. We could go back and look at statistics, but I would venture to say the most people are using a tax prep individual. Why? Because, it's hard. It's complicated. Nobody really even knows. Actually, I did pull this. Tax professionals, over 60% of Americans file their taxes with a professional helping them. And that can be anything from, their own private bookkeeper to an H&R Block, all the way up to a CPA and financial advisor in that way. So 60%, I mean, that's a pretty high number of people who rely on a professional to get the job done. And provides that peace of mind. When you send that to the IRS, that somebody's been paying attention, somebody's been reading it, and you're locked and loaded in that way. So those are some of the pros. And like everything, there's also a con. So what are some of the cons of getting a professional involved? Well, the number one that we hear all the time in our business, I will say, is cost. What is the cost? And most of the time, professional services can be expensive or are more expensive than doing it yourself. So you need to figure out what that is. And I will say that probably escalates. We talked about kind of that low stake stuff, like ordering dinner from DoorDash is going to be a much lower stake than hiring a legal person to write your will or advance directives. That's probably going to be a different price point, also based on their level of education and things like that. So just knowing that the cost may be more, and also what that cost entails. And so making sure that you understand the cost, and also understanding the opportunity cost. So for those of you who are working professionals, we've done some moves for some folks that are just working professionals. They don't have the time or the space to move themselves. And so they can make more money working their day job than they can taking the day off, finding childcare, and arranging for a move and packing for days and days and days. So in that situation, we can do within 2 days what they would take 2 weeks to do, and probably not be as organized. So now your labor costs are longer if you're using a traditional mover, or if you're using a U-Haul. Now you're looking into, what can you do? And most of you, if you're my age or older, you're too old to be moving yourself anymore. I've moved myself, I think we've done the math, over 17 times in my life I've moved. And most of those in my younger years were done by myself. Bless my parents for loading cars and loading trucks, and my in-laws, bless them for allowing us. My husband and I, our very first move together was done in a horse trailer. It was my in-laws' horse trailer. So I look back at those. We had to put tarps on the inside of it because we had to protect it from the rain, and we were moving from New Mexico to Colorado. So probably the opportunity cost for something to go wrong there was pretty high, especially if any of you have driven the Raton Pass coming from southern New Mexico into the Colorado border. And so it's thinking about those type of things too. Like, what is your opportunity cost? What does that look like? And understanding your cost. But again, like, we can do that more efficiently. So it's understanding your cost. It's not just raw cost, but it's also opportunity cost. Can you do something that is more beneficial for your life and your time versus what you're trying to accomplish by not hiring a professional? The other one, especially for some of our seniors, as things start to change in your life, you start to rely on people more. And there's some people that view relying on others is, maybe that dependence on others as maybe a con, is that you don't want to be reliant on your adult children to come help you. And you don't want to rely on your neighbor to go do this and that for you. And you don't want to rely on your grandkids and things like that. And so, while this can be a con, you don't want to hire somebody because, well, I can do it myself. It also, again, looking at the opportunity cost of what does that do for you emotionally, or what does that do for you in your relationship with your adult daughter, or let's say your adult son who you're asking to move, or, they're asking you to move. Like, maybe that is not a good direction either, going that direction. Somebody has asked us once if we would consider opening a side hustle in our moving company to do college move-ins. And I have to laugh just because I remember it personally. And I just remember the parking being a nightmare and the access being a nightmare. And the one I was in was in the 4th floor, of course, no elevator, and, schlepping all that stuff up the stairs. And we laugh all the time. But again, it causes dependence, but then also, where is that opportunity cost to free up that? So I would say that's the other maybe con, if you want to look at it as a dependency of having someone that you have to rely on to get some things done. If you've ever hired a professional or even semi-professional or something, there can sometimes be some communication problems when you're not in charge, when you're not the program manager of your own life, and you've given the reins to someone else. You're trusting that they are going to communicate to get the job done. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's a bad vendor. Sometimes it's a bad experience. Sometimes it's just the way that it has come across, or, life happens and things come in. So, just understanding that you have to be a little bit more diligent, and just making sure they understand your expectations, that there's a clear understanding of scope of work, and what they're going to do there to kind of mitigate those cons. And then, we get that all the time, of lack of personal touch, that somebody thinks that if I don't unpack my own kitchen, if I don't do that, then I'm not going to know where anything is. And I'm not going to know where the silverware drawer, and I'm not going to know where I want this and that. And, what we've realized over time is while that can be a con, yes, you're right. It doesn't have that exact personal touch. There is also kind of giving up that space for someone to maybe see it in a different way. When I moved into this house, I had our staff move us, and one of my gals was so good at putting 10 pounds of a kitchen in a 5-pound kitchen. And so she did my cupboards because I kind of downsized you know how you do. It's maybe not square footage, but you downsize in cabinetry or the shape or the size. And so I just needed some creativity. She did an amazing job. And I remember when she left, I was thinking, well, I don't know if I really like this here. I don't know if I really like this there. But at the end of the day, what I realized is that it works. And we've been here, a year and a half now, and I've never moved anything. I have everything exactly where she put it because it made sense. And because I didn't need it to be so sure. So while you don't have your own personal touch, it also, you can kind of maneuver that if you need to. But, and I think the biggest part is really communicating your vision for what you want. And so a wedding planner, for example, if the wedding planner doesn't really understand you or what you're looking for, just really having that open dialogue to be able to create that personal touch, but also in those situations, trusting that they know what they're doing kind of in that way. So, I mean, some pros and cons to how you look at professionals. And again, this can be in your work life, in your personal life. This can be as you're retired, what do you want to take over? Because now, well, I'm retired and I have all this extra time and space, but would you rather spend your retirement playing pickleball? Would you rather spend your retirement sewing with your friends or being part of a bunko group or the travel that you want to go do? So where can you free up your time and what do you want to free up? So I think that's the other thing too. So some interesting statistics on moving, because obviously that's what I know the most. That's what I speak to the most is the moving industry. And again, I said I've moved over 17 times in my life. I've done it every which way under the sun. But on average, they're saying that 22.7% of moving individuals hire full service moving professionals. So of all the people moving, 22% hire full service. A move handled with care would be considered full service. So it's a pretty small number of people who are utilizing those professionals. And then of those, some of them use partial services. So when you're looking at that, and I think that this is the other piece of it, is it's not a one or the other. Where is it that you can hybrid if it doesn't make sense for you to do it just one way? So for example, 37.5% move themselves, but rent a moving truck. So you may need to, I'm going to do it myself, but I'm going to rent a moving truck. Okay. And then 15% use moving containers along moving, so you can get like these different ways. Or what if somebody packs all of my stuff, moves my stuff, but then I unpack? Okay. Well, what happens if I want to have it packed and then I'm going to move it myself? And then, so there's ways in which that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be, how can I blend this? And how can I get a professional involved in a way that makes my life easier, better, and things like that? The only caveat I will say in that area, if it is specifically to moving, is, and maybe not just moving, but understanding when you are doing a hybrid of a little bit of me DIY and a little bit of professional, is where does liability come into play? So in the moving industry, for example, if we pack it, we insure it. If you pack it, we don't insure it, because again, it goes back to that quality assurance. We don't know if you have the right materials. We don't know if you packed appropriately. What if you put something on top of something else that we would not have done because, breakage? We stack things upright where you may have laid things flat. So we can't guarantee those things. So just understanding that. And again, if you want to do low stakes things of linens and towels and things that don't really matter, but you want to leave us your grandma's china, maybe that's where you can play with having a professional involved. So that's just kind of an interesting way of looking at it. It's not all or nothing. It's what can you do? We have a CFO service that we started getting into a couple years ago. And there was a bunch of bookkeeping stuff that they were doing, and of course, charging us for that. It was a good service. They were doing a good job. But I started to ask Sierra, my business partner, I was like, I feel like some of this I could do myself. Now, I don't want to do the high stakes stuff. I don't want to do the stuff that really matters and looking at our projections and all these different things. But like, I can enter in our bills. I can enter in where we spent money and how we did this. And I can categorize our credit card. So I asked, what are ways that I can get involved? And they said, sure, we'll show you how to do that. Yep, we'll show you how to do that. So I have a list of things that are mine. And then there's a list of things that belong to our CPA and CFO. It's a great way for us to it's a great way for me to stay involved, but also drive our costs down because we are a small business. So what can I do myself? And what do I really want to rely on others? And I will say the biggest piece is that peace of mind and confidence that my bills and my books are correct. It's super important to us. We want to make sure that we're operating efficiently. We want to make sure that we are taking care of our people, things that really matter to us, we're not going to mess around with. So it's been kind of interesting because we've even done that in our own business we have a gal who helps us in our marketing, but she doesn't do all of it. We have to create content. We have to give her the things and then she'll do it for us. So again, it's playing with what can you do and what do you not do? Maybe you get a house cleaner and you negotiate that you're going to have them clean only certain parts of your home. And maybe then you can do some of it yourself and some of it you don't. All of those ways of just making it, what decision makes the best decision for you. So we've talked about pros, we've talked about cons, we've talked about hybrids, we've talked about all those different things. And at the end of the day, you just have to take your pros and your cons when you're looking at it. And you just need to clarify your goals. Number one, what is my goal? If it has to be efficient, if it has to be fast, if it has to be what are those things that are going to expedite your decision to get a professional involved? Is it big stuff that you really are not well equipped for? Did you have an emergency in your house and you have a flood? Well, I can't DIY the roof. I have to get a roofer involved. Things like that. Like, what does that mean? And clarifying your goals. The second thing is looking at your alternatives. We just talked about a few where maybe there's alternatives where you can be involved in some and not others. Maybe you can ask your, adult kids to help in one way. And there's another thing where you can have a neighbor or a friend or a church group, something else kind of pitch in on this. So what are your alternatives? And then prioritize that for yourself. And if you're making a big change, like a move or a new job, also consider your long-term impact of what this decision and getting that personal and that professional involved in. Maybe it's childcare, like the pro and con of a childcare facility that's open, 5 days a week. They're guaranteed to be there. What that looks like, and all the cons of, well, there's lots of kids and it's a facility, it doesn't feel as homegrown and things like that. Versus having somebody in your home where if they're sick, you have to find another alternative immediately. If they have a personal emergency, that's your problem. Like relying on one person versus relying on and there's no right or wrong. You just have to prioritize that and look at the long-term impact. How will that affect your career long-term if you're always having to cancel because your babysitter is, not reliable, things like that. The other thing as you're going forward is two things. One of them is get a quote. It never hurts to get a quote. When you're looking at price, when you're looking at comparatives, when you're looking at those things, get a quote. If somebody's not giving you a no obligation quote, there's another reason why. But I would say most professionals out there will give you a quote at no charge. The other thing is when you get the quote, look over the quote and make sure you're comparing apples to apples. A lot of times it's a different service. A lot of times the service is different. It might be priced differently. Maybe these people have a dispatch fee and these people have a fuel charge and these people have supplies and these people have this. Understanding your fee structure. If you don't, call them back, have them explain it to you so that you understand what you're getting, what is the expectation, what is the scope of work. The other thing is have someone else in your group of people, whether that's a spouse, a daughter, a friend, a church member, or even a professional. So sometimes if you want to have your financial person look over a quote, they can help break that down for you. Whoever that is, have them look at the quote and make sure that you're looking at it in a way that you understand what you're paying for. So I would say that's the other one. And number two is get good referrals. Most of the time, there's people who know people who know people. You can go online and do Thumbtack or Nextdoor or something like that. but the best connections are typically the ones that you make in person. So asking your CPA who they would recommend in the law world, asking your cleaning lady if they know somebody else who does carpet cleaning. There's somebody that somebody knows in those fields that will help you connect with the right person. And that's a big thing. Maybe a junk hauler knows a recycling company. All of those things are very tightly related. So asking people who you've had a good experience with, who else they would recommend that you could have a good experience with. That's the best thing. It's what we spend an absorbent amount of time with, is building those connections with other professionals in our area, because that's what we are. We're problem solvers, and we want to make sure that people understand the service that they're getting and what kind of service and what level of service, and if people are going to be happy with that. So get good referrals, I would say, number one. And get multiple quotes if you can, if you have the time. Sometimes you don't have the time, or sometimes you feel like the best person that just walked in was the person who came in. So, and then the last thing is just really trust your gut, like whether you can or you can't, looking at your budget, knowing what you, kind of how you're setting yourself up for success or failure, just knowing your gut and knowing what that will feel like, to just make a decision on that. But I highly recommend looking at those different things, no matter where you are, whether that's changing a job, having a new baby, if it's retirement, if it's moving to a senior living community, if it's moving across the country, whatever that big life decision is, where can you make space in your life to engage a professional, whether that's even in your mental health? Think about that as well. I mean, I know the statistics are out there, it's growing and it's amazing, but the growing statistics of people seeking, mental health counseling, things like that, like what is that going to do that's going to impact the rest of your life and your family? It doesn't just have to be the tasks. It can be on yourself, prioritizing your exercise, prioritizing eating well, whether that's, getting into a HelloFresh subscription because you struggle at doing meal planning. Something like that that's going to just set you up for success. So whether it's a big thing or a little thing, just really kind of weigh your pros and cons, get your quotes, get good referrals, and trust your gut to make those decisions. So hopefully today you got a nugget or two. Maybe jot down a list of 3 things you're considering when hiring a professional, 3 things, and then maybe over the next 3 weeks, write down some pros and cons. And in the next 3 months, write down what is keeping you from making a decision on those. And hopefully in the time that you've allotted yourself, you'll either make a decision to yes or no. And also give it a go. If it doesn't work, you can always go back. So I just wanted to connect with all of you today and encourage you to reflect on those areas where a professional could really just make a difference in your life. So thanks for joining me. Have a good one. That wraps up another inspiring episode of the Making Space for podcast. A huge thank you to all of our incredible guests and to you, our cherished listeners. Your journey to intentional living begins with each small step, and we're honored to be a part of it. Before we part ways, a friendly reminder, if you're embarking on a move or seeking expert guidance in downsizing, remember a move handled with care here in the Denver area. With over 15 years of experience in senior and specialty move management, we're here to transform your transition into a seamless, stress-free experience. Visit amovehandledwithcare.com for more information, and let's continue making space for the life you've always wanted. Until next time, stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep making space for what matters most.